twin moons of Velrian 5 hung above the dark sky like silver eyes watching the world below. In the middle of the alien capital stood a giant stone field surrounded by glowing towers. At the center of that field lay the thing everyone feared and worshipped, the Starblade. The sword was not made by any known hand. Its blade shimmered with lines of gold and blue, pulsing like a beating heart. The hilt was buried deep in black crystal stone, harder than any metal. Thousands had tried to lift it. None had succeeded. Some said it was cursed. Others believed it was waiting for the true soul. Every year, the aliens of Velrian gathered to watch the strongest warriors attempt the impossible. They pulled with claws, with wings, with machines. The sword never moved. It remained silent, cold, and proud. But everything changed the night the sky burned. A human ship, small and broken, crashed in the nearby desert. Fire spread across the dunes. The alien patrol rushed to the site, their silver armor shining under the twin moons. Inside the wreck, they found only one survivor, a man. His name was Eli Ward, an engineer from a distant human colony. His ship had been hit by a storm of cosmic debris. When he opened his eyes, he saw towering aliens with silver eyes and horned helmets staring down at him. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know he had just landed on a world of legends. Human, one guard hissed, poking him with a spear made of light. Your kind should not be here. Eli was too weak to fight. He raised his hands. I didn't come here on purpose, he said. I just crashed. The guards did not believe him. They tied his hands and dragged him through the glowing streets. The aliens whispered and pointed. Many had never seen a human before. His skin, his hair, his eyes, everything about him looked strange to them. When they reached the stone field, the guards stopped. The Empress Valeth herself was present that night, watching the latest warrior attempt to lift the Starblade. The huge crowd stood silent as a 10-foot soldier pulled with both arms. The stone did not even crack. The sword did not shine. The Empress's voice echoed. Next, and that was the moment the guards brought in the human. The crowd murmured in shock. A few laughed. What is this tiny creature? One shouted. He can barely walk. Eli blinked against the bright light of the arena. He didn't understand what was happening. The guards pushed him forward, forcing him to his knees in front of the sword. The Empress narrowed her glowing purple eyes. He came from the sky. Let him touch it, she said calmly. Let us see if the sword recognizes him. Eli frowned. What sword? I don't understand, but before he could finish, the guard shoved him. His hand hit the blade's hilt. A strange sound filled the air, not loud but deep like thunder rolling under the ground. The Starblade began to glow, slowly, softly, then brighter and brighter until every alien shielded their eyes. The ground cracked around the stone. The blade trembled as if alive. For the first time in centuries it moved. The guards fell back in fear. Some shouted. Some bowed. The Empress stood frozen. The light reflected in her eyes as she whispered. It answered. The human. Eli pulled back his hand, shaking. What did I do? No one replied. The glowing faded, but the arena was still silent. Everyone stared at him. A simple human engineer, weak and lost, yet somehow connected to their most sacred relic. The Empress finally spoke. Take him to the palace, she ordered. Do not harm him. The Starblade has chosen to wait. As Eli was dragged away, he looked over his shoulder at the sword. For a second, he thought he saw a faint image, a shadow of a man and a woman standing side by side. One human, one alien, holding the blade together, then it vanished. Above, the moons of Velrian shone brighter than ever, as if the stars themselves were watching the return of an old prophecy. And far away, deep in the void of space, something ancient and dark opened its eyes. The morning after the strange event, the alien capital buzzed with noise. Every street and sky bridge glowed with banners showing the image of the Starblade shining in the hands of a human. No one could believe what they had seen. The Empress's guards were ordered to close the city gates. Rumors spread faster than the wind. The sword had moved for the outsider. Inside the royal palace, Eli Ward sat on a cold stone bench, his hands tied but his mind racing. He kept hearing the sound, the deep hum from the sword like it was still echoing in his bones. He didn't understand how it happened. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't special. He was just an engineer who fixed engines and pipes, not legends and prophecies. The door of his cell opened. 2 armored guards stepped in. Between them walked Tira, the young alien scholar from the temple archives. Her blue eyes shone with curiosity. She looked more nervous than he did. "The Empress wants to see you," she said softly. "She wants to test something." "Test what?" Eli asked. Tira hesitated. "If the sword will move again. For you." Eli's throat went dry. "You think I can lift it?" "No," she said quickly, "but they do. And if you fail, they might not let you live long after." Before Eli could reply, the guards pushed him forward through glowing halls covered in alien runes. The palace was like a living creature. Its walls breathed faint light and strange sounds echoed from the floors. He felt small in front of the grand marble doors of the arena of light, where the test would happen. Inside, thousands of aliens sat in tall tiers around a circular platform. The Empress Valeth sat on her throne high above, dressed in shining crystal armor. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with sharp focus. She raised a hand. "Bring the Starblade." From the shadows, the massive sword floated into the arena, carried by drones made of gold and glass. It was laid down on the platform, its glow soft and waiting. "Before the human touches it," the Empress said, "our best warriors will try again. The first alien—" A tall, red-skinned soldier with 4 arms roared and grabbed the hilt. His muscles bulged. Sparks flew, but the sword didn't move. He screamed in pain and fell back. The next alien tried, then another and another. None could even make the blade hum. The crowd booed. Some shouted that the sword was broken. Others whispered that it was cursed. Finally, the Empress's voice echoed, "The human will step forward." Eli's legs shook as he walked to the center. He felt thousands of alien eyes burning into him. He swallowed hard, his palms sweaty. The sword looked peaceful, like it was asleep, waiting. He knelt down, took a breath, and touched the hilt. At first, nothing happened. Then, a faint hum vibrated through his fingers. The runes across the blade began to glow again, slowly, like a heartbeat waking up. The ground trembled. The arena lights flickered. The golden floor cracked slightly under his knees. The aliens gasped. The Empress stood up, her wings spreading in shock. Eli tried to pull, but the sword stayed firm. Still, he could feel it responding to him, like it knew him. He whispered under his breath, "What are you?" A bright line of blue energy ran from the sword up his arm, forming strange symbols on his skin. The crowd screamed. The sword suddenly stopped glowing, leaving silence heavier than air. Eli let go, panting. The blue symbols faded, but didn't vanish completely. The Empress descended from her throne, her armor clicking softly. She looked at him with a mixture of awe and fear. "You awakened it again," she said. "The Starblade has never answered anyone twice." Eli blinked, confused. "I didn't do anything." "You are lying," one general shouted. "He is using forbidden human tricks." The Empress raised her hand to silence him. "No tricks. The sword chooses, and it seems it has chosen to wait." For him, Eli stood there trembling, as every alien bowed their heads not to the sword but to him. He didn't know it yet, but the real test had only just begun. Far above the planet, hidden among the stars, something ancient whispered, "The key has been touched again." The night after the second test, the entire capital of Velrion 5 could not sleep. From the glowing towers to the deep crystal mines, everyone whispered one name, the human. In the deepest level of the royal palace, far below the bright halls of the Empress, Eli Ward sat inside a dim energy cell. The walls hummed with faint light and the air smelled like metal and dust. Strange whispers echoed through the stones, soft and cold, like the place itself was alive. He rubbed the glowing mark still faintly visible on his arm. They pulsed every few seconds, almost like a heartbeat. "Why is this happening?" he muttered. "I just touched it." From outside the cell, a quiet voice replied, "Because it remembered you." Eli looked up. The young alien scholar, Tira, stood near the barrier, her white robes glowing softly. She looked around to make sure the guards were gone before stepping closer. Eli frowned. "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," she said with a small smile. Then her expression turned serious. "You are in danger, Eli. The generals are angry. They believe the sword has betrayed their people. Some want to execute you before the next sunrise." He stood up, his pulse racing. "Execute me? For touching a sword?" "This is not just a sword," Tira said. "It is the Starblade of Unity. The first weapon ever forged between alien and human hands, thousands of years ago. Eli stared at her. Humans and aliens. Working together? That's not in any history I know. Because your history forgot us, she whispered. But our oldest scrolls tell a different story. There was once a time when our two species stood side by side. Together they fought a monster from the stars, the Star Eater. Eli's eyes widened. The what? Tira pressed her hand against the glowing cell wall. It was a living darkness. It ate whole planets. The Starblade was made to stop it. It needed the spirit of both species, alien courage and human heart. But after the war, humans vanished and the blade went silent. Until you touched it. Eli felt the weight of her words. You think that thing might come back? Tira hesitated. There are signs. The sky storms. The black stars. The Empress won't speak of it, but she knows something is coming. A sudden metallic click echoed from the corridor. Tira quickly turned away as a guard's shadow appeared. She whispered fast. Listen, there's a hidden chamber below this prison. Old writings. If you can reach it, you'll find the truth. But don't let them see you. The sword has chosen you for a reason. Before he could answer, she stepped back into the light, pretending to be checking on him like a servant. The guard passed by, not noticing her whisper. When the hall was silent again, Eli sat back, staring at the glowing floor. Hours passed. The whispers in the walls grew louder, forming strange words in a language he didn't know, yet somehow understood. The bridge must awaken, before the dark returns. Eli's heart pounded. He pressed his palm against the floor. The marks on his arm began to shine, brighter and brighter, until the wall beside him cracked open, revealing a narrow path behind it. He hesitated for a moment, then crawled through. The tunnel led to an ancient hall filled with floating blue lights. Massive stone walls were carved with old scenes, humans and aliens fighting side by side, holding the same sword he had touched. In the center stood a broken statue of a man and a woman, their hands locked around the Starblade. Between them was a single phrase written in both languages. One world burns. Two hearts save it. Eli touched the carving. The glowing light from his arm spread into the walls. Images flashed before his eyes. Battles, explosions, an enormous creature with eyes like dying suns. He saw humans falling, aliens screaming, and then silence. When the vision ended, he fell to his knees, shaking. The whispers in the air turned gentle. Find the bond, they said, before the stars go dark again. From far above, alarms began to ring. Guards shouted. The Empress had discovered his escape. Eli looked at the glowing script one last time. If this sword wants me, he whispered, it's going to have to explain why. Then he turned toward the tunnel's end, ready to face whatever waited above, unaware that the first traitor in the palace had already begun to move against him. The royal palace of Velrion 5 was silent that night, but it was the kind of silence that hides danger. Every hall glowed faintly with crystal torches. Every guard stood stiff and alert. Whispers ran through the corridors. The human had escaped his cell. In her high throne chamber, Empress Valeth sat motionless. The faint blue light from her crown flickered as she listened to her generals argue below. Her purple eyes were calm, but her fingers tapped slowly on the armrest. He's a threat, roared General Korvath, his armor black like molten glass. He touched the Starblade twice. The prophecy says the one who awakens it will bring the fall of our empire. Another general stepped forward. Or the rebirth of it, Korvath. The sword could bring unity just as it did before. Korvath sneered. Unity with a human? We lost thousands of warriors trying to claim that blade. Now some weak outsider walks in and steals our glory. The Empress's voice cut through the noise. Enough. Everyone fell silent. Her gaze was sharp as light. Find the human, but bring him alive. If the sword truly answers to him, killing him may kill our only chance to survive what's coming. Korvath bowed stiffly, but his eyes burned with hate. As you command, my Empress. Down in the hidden tunnels, Eli Ward and Tira hurried through a maze of glowing roots and old machines. The air shimmered with heat. This place feels like the inside of a star, Eli whispered. Tira's voice shook. It's the oldest part of the palace, built when humans still lived among us. You shouldn't have come down here. If Korvath finds us, I need answers, Eli said. That sword keeps calling me. I can feel it even now. Before Tira could reply, a loud metallic voice echoed through the tunnels. "Human, come out and die with honor." Korvath's troops had found them. Blue light filled the passage as plasma spears burned against the walls. Eli grabbed Tira's arm and pulled her behind a collapsed pillar. "We need another way out." Tira pointed upward to a faint light in the ceiling. "There, the old vent path. It leads back to the Hall of Echoes." They climbed quickly, but the noise of pursuit grew louder. Korvath himself appeared at the tunnel entrance, his black armor glowing red. "You cannot run from destiny, human." Eli's breath came fast. "Maybe not," he muttered, "but I can fight it." Moments later, they burst into the Hall of Echoes, the same place where the Starblade had once been displayed before the tests. The sword rested again on its stone base, silent but glowing faintly as if waiting. Tira gasped. "It called you here." Eli didn't answer. He just stared at the sword. The marks on his arm began to glow again, brighter than before. He stepped toward it, but the doors slammed open behind them. Korvath marched in with a dozen soldiers. His voice was a growl. "Step away from the relic." Tira shouted, "General, please, he's not our enemy." Korvath's face twisted with rage. "You defend him? Then you betray your own people." He raised his plasma lance and fired. The bolt hit Tira's shoulder. She screamed and fell to the ground. Eli froze. Time seemed to stop. The sword flared with sudden light, responding to his heartbeat. Sparks filled the air. "Enough!" he shouted, and his hand closed around the hilt. The Starblade erupted with blinding energy. Lightning cracked through the hall, throwing the soldiers back. Korvath's armor shattered as he flew into a wall. The crystal pillars burst like glass. The Empress, hearing the explosion, rushed in with her guards. She stopped at the doorway, eyes wide in shock. Eli stood in the center, holding the Starblade halfway lifted from the stone. Its blue light surrounded him and Tira. The Empress whispered, "The sword has chosen again." Korvath groaned, blood on his lips. "He will destroy us." Eli looked down at Tira, bleeding but alive. "I don't want to fight," he said, "but I won't let anyone die for me." The Empress stepped closer. "Then prove it, human. Save her and save us." The sword's light dimmed slowly, sinking back into silence. Eli dropped to his knees, shaking. He had no idea what had just happened. Only that every alien in that hall now saw him not as a prisoner, but as something far more dangerous. And far above them in the empty sky, a shadow moved, a massive shape among the stars, watching. The Star Eater had begun to awaken. The alarm blared again, and this time louder, sharper, closer. Red lights flashed across the narrow metal corridor outside Mark's room. The entire human sector was under lockdown. Mark's pulse hammered in his chest. He could hear the heavy march of armored boots approaching, the thud echoing through the walls. The commander wasn't bluffing. They were sealing every exit. He crouched beside the vent and whispered, "We have to move now." Princess Elira's golden eyes glimmered faintly in the darkness of the shaft. "Where will we go?" "Maintenance tunnels," Mark said. "They lead to the lower supply hangars. If we can get past security, there's an emergency rover there." She hesitated. "You're risking everything for me." He looked at her seriously. Too late to turn back now. Mark lifted the vent cover and helped her out. Her hands were trembling, her skin glowing faintly under the red light. The soft hum of her energy aura made the air feel warm. She was clearly weak, but she still carried herself with quiet dignity, even barefoot and wrapped in his jacket. They slipped into the corridor. The floor was cold metal, scattered with shadows from the flashing alarms. Elira stayed close behind as Mark led the way down the narrow hall, moving silently. Halfway down, they froze. Voices, deep, mechanical, echoed from the corner ahead. Two alien soldiers were scanning the hallway with glowing blue visors. The sound of their armor scraping the wall made Mark's stomach twist. He leaned toward Elira. "Stay behind me. Don't make a sound." The soldiers stopped near the storage door, their scanners beeping softly. One said, "Life readings nearby." 2 heartbeats, Mark's blood ran cold. He knew they were seconds from being caught. His mind raced then, and a spark of memory. The emergency fire alarm switch. He grabbed a small wrench from his belt and tossed it down the opposite corridor. The clatter echoed sharply, followed by the hiss of steam pipes bursting as the tool hit the valve. The sensors picked it up instantly. "Movement on the left," shouted one of the guards. Both soldiers ran toward the noise. Mark pulled Elira's hand. "Now." They sprinted down the side corridor, their footsteps silent against the humming floor. The smell of oil and ozone filled the air as they turned a corner, passing old signs written in both human and alien language. At the end of the hall stood a hatch marked Maintenance Shaft C7. Mark forced it open with his ID chip. The door slid shut behind them just as the sound of boots returned down the hall. Inside it was dark and narrow, the air thick with dust. Pipes lined the walls, dripping faintly with condensation. Elira shivered. "It's cold here." Mark gave her his outer jacket. "Better?" She nodded weakly. "You shouldn't help me this much." "They'll exile you." Mark smiled faintly in the dark. "Exile's better than watching someone get killed for nothing." They moved through the shaft carefully, their steps echoing softly. The tunnel curved downward, leading to the old service decks where no one went anymore. But just as Mark thought they were safe, the communicator on his wrist buzzed. "Incoming transmission. Human command base." He tapped it cautiously. The voice that came through made his stomach twist. "Lieutenant Mark, this is command. We've been ordered to hand over any alien royals found within human territory. Do you have any information?" Mark stared at the blinking device. He could lie, but his heart told him the truth would cost everything. "No," he said finally. "No sign of her here." There was a pause. Then the voice replied coldly, "Understood. We'll begin searching your sector manually." The signal cut out. Elira looked at him. "They're not just the enemy anymore, are they?" Mark shook his head slowly. "No, now everyone's the enemy." A faint hum passed through the floor, the vibration of moving drones above them. "Search units." They hurried faster, climbing down a narrow ladder into a deeper section of the tunnels. When they reached the end, they found a metal door half buried in sand. Mark forced it open and a wave of cool night air rushed in. Above them stretched the alien desert, silver dunes glowing under the twin moons. Elira stepped out, her hair shimmering like light. She turned back to him, whispering, "You didn't have to save me." Mark looked at her, breathing hard. "Yeah, well, you knocked on my door." Far behind them, a distant explosion shook the base. The commander had found their trail. Mark looked toward the dark horizon. "We're not safe yet." Elira's eyes glowed softly as she raised her hand, summoning a faint golden shimmer in the sand, a hidden path only she could see. "Then follow me," she said. "It's my turn to lead." And together they vanished into the glowing dunes, the night closing behind them like a secret no one would ever believe. The wind outside was sharp and cold. The silver dunes stretched endlessly under the twin moons, glowing like oceans of glass. Mark and Princess Elira ran until their lungs burned, the sound of explosions fading behind them. When they finally stopped, they found a small crack in the ground, an entrance half buried under sand. Mark knelt, brushing away dust until a faint blue light flickered inside. "A maintenance tunnel," he said. "Old Lyson transport route. It might be abandoned." Elira nodded weakly, clutching her robe tighter. "Then that's where we'll disappear." They climbed down into the darkness. The air was cool and smelled of rust and damp stone. Ancient pipes ran along the walls, glowing faintly with alien markings. The tunnel stretched far beneath the surface, so deep that the sound of the wind above disappeared completely. Mark set down his pack and activated a small light. The soft white beam illuminated dust motes and cracked metal panels. "We'll rest here for a while," he said quietly. "You need it." Elira sat down beside a broken console, breathing softly. Her face looked pale under the light, her golden eyes dim but calm. "You've done more for me than anyone from my world ever did," she whispered. Mark chuckled faintly. "You make it sound like I'm your bodyguard." "You are," she said seriously. "For now." For a few minutes, silence filled the space, peaceful but heavy. The only sound was the hum of energy deep below. Mark leaned against the wall, his eyes fixed on her as he finally asked, "Why did your brother send assassins? What's really going on in your palace?" Elira hesitated. Her fingers brushed over the ancient runes on the tunnel wall, and the symbols glowed faintly at her touch. "You deserve to know," she said softly. She looked up, her voice steady but sad. "Humans are not supposed to remember us." Mark frowned. "What do you mean?" "Years ago," she began, "my mother, the Empress, made a secret pact with your human leaders. To keep peace between our worlds, they erased every trace of Lysera from human memory. A virus built to delete certain images, languages, and names. It was meant to protect both sides from war. Mark's stomach tightened. You're saying we've met your people before? Yes, Illyra nodded. Many times. You built colonies here once. You traded, even loved some of us. But when the virus spread, your kind forgot everything. Every treaty. Every friendship. Every promise. Mark stared at her in disbelief. That's impossible. Humans would never, she looked at him sadly. Humans would forget. That's what you do best. Her words hung in the air like a ghost. Mark rubbed his forehead, trying to process it. Then why are you telling me this now? Because my brother wants to finish what the virus started, she said. He believes humans are dangerous, unpredictable, emotional. He wants to erase you completely, not just your memories. Mark's jaw clenched. And you? I think your emotions are what make you special, Illyra said quietly. You care. You protect. You remember kindness even when it hurts. That's why I came to you that night. He met her gaze. Something raw flickering between them, fear, trust, and something deeper neither could name. You're strange. Princess, he said softly. She smiled faintly. And you're reckless, human. A sudden rumble shook the tunnel, making the dust rain from above. The soft hum of energy flickered, then went dark. Mark jumped to his feet. They're tracking energy signals. We have to move. Illyra stood, holding his arm to steady herself. There's an old passage that leads to the city's lower ruins, she said. If we reach it, I can call my old guardian. He'll know what to do. Mark nodded, packing quickly. Then let's go before this place becomes our tomb. They started walking again, deeper into the glowing dark. The walls began to shimmer faintly, showing carved murals of humans and aliens standing side by side. Forgotten history, still glowing after centuries. Illyra stopped and whispered, They once called you brothers of the stars. Mark looked at the carving, a human hand and an alien hand joined together, and felt something stir inside him. Like a lost memory returning, he smiled faintly. Then maybe it's time we remember again. Behind them, faint echoes of boots and drones approached. Ahead, the tunnel curved into blackness. They had no choice but to keep moving, and as they vanished into the ancient dark, the glowing carvings faded, leaving only silence and the promise of something the galaxy thought was long forgotten. The sun of Lysera rose pale and cold over the desert horizon. Its twin moons faded slowly as morning light spilled across the dunes, turning them gold. Mark and Princess Illyra climbed out of the underground tunnel after hours of walking in darkness. The ruins behind them vanished under drifting sand. Mark breathed heavily, his face covered in dust. We made it. Barely. Ahead, the alien capital shimmered like a mirage, towers of glass and light rising from the valley floor, wrapped in glowing energy rings. It was beautiful, but Illyra's expression was grim. That city, she whispered. It doesn't welcome me anymore. Mark glanced at her. Your home? She nodded. My cage. They moved toward it carefully, following a narrow ravine until they reached the outskirts. Broken gates, patrol drones, and abandoned guard posts. Smoke curled from distant fires. The royal palace loomed above everything, its white towers glowing faintly like frozen lightning. Mark stopped behind a rock and pulled out his binocular visor. Security everywhere, he muttered. They're looking for you. Illyra's golden eyes glowed faintly. No, they're waiting for me. What do you mean? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped forward, her feet sinking slightly into the sand. My brother knows I'd come back. He left trails for me to follow, false codes, false hope. He's drawing me in, Mark frowned. Then we're walking into a trap, Illyra's voice softened. Yes, but I have to face him. He studied her face, pale, tired, but burning with quiet courage. Then I'm coming with you. Illyra looked at him for a long moment. You've already given up too much, Mark smiled faintly. And I've already gone too far to stop. They began moving again, sneaking through the lower alleys of the city. The streets were almost empty. No merchants, no civilians, only patrols. Posters bearing Illyra's image hung on walls marked, Traitor to the Crown. Mark clenched his fists. They turned your own people against you, she whispered. My brother controls the message. He calls me a human lover. To them, that's worse than treason. They reached the royal causeway, a bridge of blue crystal leading to the palace gates. The air shimmered with defense fields scanning every molecule. Illyra touched her pendant, which flickered with ancient energy. The shields parted for her like water. Mark stared. How did you... Royal code, she said quietly. My mother's final gift. They stepped through the field into the palace courtyard. It was eerily silent. Statues of old rulers lined the path. Proud faces, lifeless eyes, then came the voice. Welcome home, sister. Mark turned sharply. A figure stood at the top of the steps. Tall, regal, wearing black royal armor that glowed with red energy. His face was like Elira's, but colder, his eyes sharp and cruel. Prince Valir. Elira's jaw tightened. You murdered my guards, he smiled faintly. They betrayed me first. You left me no choice. You sent assassins to my chambers. To protect the throne, Valir said calmly. You would have handed it to the humans. Mark stepped forward, his voice firm. She wanted peace. Valir's gaze turned toward him, amused. And you must be the human who hides her sins. He tilted his head. How interesting that she ran to one of your kind, a creature of impulse and weakness. Mark's hand moved to his weapon, but Elira stopped him with a quiet gesture. Don't, she whispered. He wants you to fight. Valir's voice grew colder. Mother trusted humans. It destroyed her. I won't make the same mistake. He raised his hand, and from the shadows armored guards appeared, 10, 20, maybe more. Their weapons glowed with plasma light. Mark's grip tightened on his rifle. You planned this the whole time. Valir smirked. Of course. You led her right back to me, human. I should thank you. Elira stepped in front of Mark, her golden aura flaring. If you want me, let him go. Her brother's voice was a whisper of poison. No, I want both of you. One for betrayal, one for corruption. The air trembled as energy fields powered up around them. The palace gates sealed shut with a thunderous boom. Mark looked around, trapped. We're surrounded. Elira's voice was steady but filled with sorrow. I know, Valir smiled coldly. You should have stayed in exile, sister. Elira lifted her chin, eyes burning with light. And you should have remembered what family means. Then, without another word, the floor beneath them cracked. She unleashed her hidden power, shattering the first ring of soldiers with a wave of golden force. Mark fired his rifle, covering her as chaos erupted in the palace courtyard. The betrayal had begun, and this time, there was no turning back. The palace courtyard shook with fire and thunder. Plasma bolts tore through the air, painting the walls with burning blue light. Smoke filled the grand marble hall as human and alien technology clashed in chaos. Mark ducked behind a fallen pillar, firing short bursts from his rifle. Each shot echoed against the endless corridors. He could barely hear over the alarms and screams. The energy shield on his arm was flickering, too weak to hold much longer. Mark, Elira shouted. He turned. She stood at the center of the hall, her golden aura blazing like a star. Her brother, Prince Valir, faced her from the throne steps, his red armor cracked, eyes wild with fury. The energy around him pulsed with anger and betrayal. You destroyed our bloodline, he roared. I saved it, Elira shouted back. Mother believed peace was possible, and I will not let you turn her dream into war. Valir raised his blade, a weapon forged from living plasma, glowing crimson. Then you'll die with your precious human. He charged forward. The impact of his strike sent shockwaves through the room. Elira barely blocked it, their energy fields colliding in a burst of light. Sparks scattered across the floor like falling stars. Mark saw her stumble, and without thinking, he ran into the open. Elira. She turned just as Valir thrust his blade forward, aimed at her heart. Mark leapt between them. The plasma blade tore through his shoulder armor, burning deep. He fell to one knee, gasping in pain. Human fool, Valir hissed. You would die for her? Mark gritted his teeth. I'd die, to show you what loyalty means. Elira's scream echoed through the hall. Her aura flared gold, and for a heartbeat time seemed to stop. The air froze. The soldiers halted mid-step. The fire stilled in mid-air. Mark blinked in disbelief. Everything had gone silent. Everything except her. Elira's eyes glowed brighter than the sun's. You will not touch him again. She raised her hand, and golden light poured from her palm, flooding the throne hall. Valir's armor shattered, his weapon turned to dust. He fell to his knees, unable to move. Sister, he gasped. You used the forbidden gift. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I didn't want to. But you left me no choice. He looked up at her, his voice weak. You think mercy will save them? It never does. Then his body went still, his last breath fading with a whisper. The The silence returned. The battle was over. Illyra turned to Mark, falling beside him. "Stay with me," she begged. He tried to smile, though his face was pale. "You're safe now. That's all that matters." "No," she said, shaking her head. "You matter." She placed her glowing hands over his wound. Warm light spread through his body. The pain eased, but he felt weaker, like the light was leaving her to keep him alive. "Stop," he said. "You're draining yourself," she smiled softly. "Maybe humans forget easily, but I won't forget you." The sun began to rise beyond the shattered palace walls. Its first light fell across her face, soft and pure. Mark whispered, "You should rest." Illyra leaned closer, her voice trembling. "Do you remember the first thing I said to you?" He smiled faintly. "Yeah, can I shower in your room, human?" She laughed quietly through her tears. "And you said yes," he chuckled weakly. "Best mistake I ever made." Her fingers brushed his face gently. It wasn't a mistake. It was destiny. For a long moment, they sat together as dawn broke. 2 lives, 2 worlds, bound by a single night. When the alien guards finally entered, they found their princess kneeling beside the human, her aura fading into the morning light. Later, the chronicles would say that on that day, the war between humans and Lacerans ended. The new Empress Illyra swore peace, sealed not with treaties, but with the memory of one man who dared to open his door when she knocked at midnight. And every night, before she slept, she whispered the same words, not as a question, but as a promise. "Can I shower in your room, human?" Because that was where everything began, and where 2 hearts from different worlds finally found home.